Hey y'all, it is March the 24th, 2018, and thank y'all for joining me this morning. I hope you're having a blessed morning, or whenever it is you're joining me. I don't know. I want to talk to you about something that, it's been weighing pretty heavy on me. Shoot, I don't know if you could hear that, but it's a lawnmower in the back, and I'm sorry about that. You can hear this dog is panting like nobody's business. And aside from all the distraction, it's noisy. It's noisy as hell around here. Right? I want to start off this video, and it's very important that I discuss this because it's just it's just very recently got onto my brains. I feel like it's important to share. But before I do that, as a quick aside, because I'm not going to make a video dedicated to it, as a quick aside, David Hogg. Listen, David Hogg, if you ever see this video, you're becoming the most deplorable person that I've ever seen in my life. And that's the thing, I've seen a bunch of your videos. I've seen a bunch of your gang of ragtag bad news bears. I've seen their videos, and I haven't seen them lately just because I just can't take it no more. It makes me want to throw up everywhere, and I don't even know how to throw up. I really don't. Thing is, it might not even be your fault. Maybe the CNN and the rest of that disgusting heap of garbage, the MSM, maybe they're putting words in your mouth. I don't know, because I don't have the stomach for it. But you're disgusting. It seems like you're disgusting, and I'm tired of it. Here's the thing, y'all. God bless the children. I'll say it every day till the day that I die. But see, God bless the children. But at the same time, as adult people who've lived in the real world, we're not supposed to take the advice of children. And these children are being sincerely used by people with very, very deep pockets. And those people with deep pockets want more money in them, and they're getting it. And it's disgusting. All right, I just want to get that out of the way because I don't want to make a whole video about it. All right, here is the meat and potatoes of what I really, really wanted to discuss with y'all. And I have a couple of stories to share with y'all. It might be a little bit of a long video, but I think that's going to be important and crucial. All right, I want to share this with you. I'm not sure where to start. I guess I'll start with Big Spring, Texas, which is a place where that I lived for a few years just recently. Big Spring, Texas. You probably never heard of it. Don't blame you. But just to catch you up on it, it's an oil town. It's a small oil town, and it hits the extremes in every single way, to include extreme laziness. All right, you'll never find people more lazy, and that's all right. You'll never find people more friendly, and that's all right. You'll never find people more hopped up on dope and smack and crack and cream and crackle. And that's all right. I don't. It is what it is. I do want to mention that there's certain epidemics going on over in Big Spring, and perhaps across the nation and the world. Certain epidemics going on in Big Spring to include murder. That ain't rare. That certainly ain't rare over in Big Spring. All right. Much like drug use. Also, it's not rare at all, happens on a weekly basis, is suicide. All right, and it's especially noticeable because it is such a small town. All right, and I want to tell you about a couple different scenarios. The first one I'll tell you is a story that I heard from a lady who I know, who I was living, with, if you will, over in Big Spring. This lady is very dear to me and important to me. This lady was telling me about a story that happened, in her words, probably 2 or 3 days ago. All right, it's about suicide. There's a mountain, if you're gonna call it that. It's a big hill over in Big Spring, Texas, and it's called Scenic Mountain. And everybody knows. You go to Big Spring, everybody knows what you're talking about. Scenic Mountain. And there's actually a hospital there that everybody has something to say about, and I don't blame them, called Scenic Mountain Hospital. And a lot of times the nickname for it is Tragic Mountain Hospital. All right, I'll just let you, if you ever want to research why. All right, so there's a mountain called Scenic Mountain. Like I said, suicide's an epidemic around there. It's not rare. A lady who I don't know, I might Google it. Lady the other day, she drove her car up to the top of Scenic Mountain over there in Big Spring, and she went ahead and drove off of it purposefully. Right? That's what people have gathered. Right? You can imagine that she hit the lowest of the low. All right, you know what I mean? She hit her breaking point. There's nothing that she could do. She probably let a minuscule thing turn into a very monumental thing, and it overtook her. Right? What's very important to know about this particular situation is that that lady had her young daughter, and I don't know the age, but her young daughter in the car with her when she did it. All right. So that in. So she had a young daughter in the car with her when she decided to do this. Certainly, you can imagine it was probably a single parent situation. Drove off the mountain, and that lady proceeded to die. All right. Her daughter, from what I understand, is in critical condition. She did not die. Critical condition. All right, tragic. These are the things that happen in Big Spring, like clockwork. All right, take it for what it is. That was a person who more than likely hit her absolute low. All right, could not take it anymore, was overwhelmed by it. All right, I want to tell you about a story that I actually mentioned before on this channel, back when it was brand new, basically. You probably won't be able to find me talking about the story because it's very hard to find things on my channel. But it was a particular story in which I knew a person, and that particular person's best friend went ahead and he committed suicide. All right, and I found about it way after the fact. That particular person's best friend, he committed suicide. And what's interesting about that story is the story goes that the person who I knew and his best friend were hanging out at his best friend's house. All right, this is how the story goes, how it was told to me. We're hanging out, just hanging out, chilling out, playing around with his best friend's dog. Just hanging out, chilling out. There's nothing very notable about it, just hanging out and chilling out with his best friend and his best friend's dog over at his best friend's place. Right? During that night, from what I understand, the best friend excuses himself briefly, goes out to the car in front of the house, and goes to the car without saying anything, just briefly excuses himself to the car, and takes a gun and shoots himself in the head. Alright, that's how the story goes. That's how it was told to me. And I found out later after the fact. I actually found out from a different person who is a friend of mine, who is also a friend of that guy. And basically Big Spring is a small town, so he knew the guy, and he also knew the guy's best friend who had committed suicide. And like I said, the situation was this one person and his best friend were at a house, and his best friend wound up killing himself without telling nobody. All right, his best friend wound up coming out and finding out. All right, so I get told the story by a third party who knows all these individuals. The way I was told this story by that third party is I went to his work. I knew where he worked, and I had to ask him a question. I had to ask him about this friend who did not kill himself, and I know it's kind of getting confusing. All right, I had to ask him about this friend who didn't kill himself, who had to witness his friend dead. All right. I wanted to know if I could get a hold of him because I wanted to get a hold of him for some reason. And so the guy who I was talking about, or the guy who I was talking to at his work about this guy who I wanted to get a hold of, he proceeded and told me the story. He told me, it's probably not going to be easy to get a hold of him. He's dealing with a whole bunch of things. His best friend the other day shot himself in the head, told me the whole story. So I'm standing there with this fella at his work, and we're talking about this, and we're pondering this. And like I said, it's not rare in Big Spring, right? So this is kind of almost casual conversation that I'm having with this guy. And we're just pondering and talking about it, sharing the sentiments that people usually share in this sort of situation. Like, man, that's unsavory. That's no good. Everybody wishes this didn't happen and stuff like this. And I made mention that it's pretty messed up. Like I said, the usual sentiments were shared, and I was like, it's really messed up. I wonder what was going on in that fella's brain. All right. So the guy who I was talking to, he shared with me this sentiment that I did not see coming, and it's very important. It's very important. It's in my head, and it will never leave. All right. He says to me, I don't know if you'll understand. He's telling this to me. He said, I don't know if you'll understand, but I want to tell you this. Is that, of course, a lot of times when people commit suicide, they're at their very low. They're at their lowest point, and they seem overwhelmed, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then they feel like they have no options. Things of this nature. He said about this guy who just killed himself. What I want to share with you, and I don't know if you'll understand, is that it was likely the situation was that he wasn't at his very low when this happened. All right. He said, I don't know for sure, but more likely what it was in a sense the opposite. I don't know why he's telling me this. He knows those people well more than I do. I don't know why he was telling me this, and I certainly didn't question it. I took it in and absorbed what he was saying to me right then. He said, what was more likely the situation, and what seems to happen sometimes, is that the person who excused himself and went out to the car and proceeded to shoot himself in the head while his best friend was yards away in the house or in the backyard or something like that. That person, what likely happened, realized then and there in that particular moment that he had hit his peak. He was at maybe a state of perhaps ecstasy. He didn't say those words, but I'm kind of inferring those words into the story. But that's what he was explaining to me. That's what he was implying. He told me about the idea in order to ponder it. I don't know why he was telling me. He said the situation might have been, it might have very well been, and likely was, that the guy who committed suicide and shot himself in the head was so happy in that particular moment. He was so at peace, right? In his probably tragic, messed up life, probably. He was so at peace in that particular moment that he knew that it would never get better than that particular moment. He knew it in his heart. He knew that he had reached the peak, that he would never ever, in his tragic life, or this was what was implied, that it would never ever look better than this. And so inevitably, it would have to go downhill from there. And instead of continuing to live, his decision was to end it right then and there. Like, for an example, as an analogy, Tim Duncan or Michael Jordan or whoever you want to put into that analogy, a sports star, retiring at their peak. They know it can't get better. They know that if they continue, it's only going to not be as good. All right. So this is the sentiment he put across. And he told me, he said, I don't know if you're going to even understand what I'm saying, but I want to tell you this. That I believe that probably this person reached his peak. He knew that it was never ever in his life, it never was going to stand to get better. And I don't know if that's true or not. Who could ever tell? But in his mind, he thought, okay, I've reached the peak. I've reached ecstasy. It's not going to get better than this. It's only going to get worse. I'm only going to desire to come back to this moment because the future ain't looking so good for me. And so, without telling anybody, I'm going to excuse myself, go out to the front of the driveway, and blow my brains out. All right. I don't know. I don't know for sure if that was what the guy was thinking. All I know is this is what I was told. This is what I was told to think about. And I will never forget that. That is burned into my brain forever and ever. All right. And that's why I want to tell you these stories in order to relay this message to you for whatever it's worth right now. Is that the feeling of wanting to die. All right. A lot of people are familiar with, okay, you hit your very rock bottom in your mind. You've exhausted all your options. You don't know what else to do. You feel like you've ruined your whole life, and you're done for. There's no other option. There is no escape, and so you take your own life. And it's tragic. Nobody wanted you to, but also nobody could save you. Nobody had the power to save you, right? And at the very extreme opposite end of that spectrum, you have a feeling of, and that's all I can say is ecstasy. That's all I can say is nirvana. You have a feeling of just ultimate peace. And once you reach that feeling, what's important to note is that you will have a strong desire to die. They're at the very opposite ends of that spectrum. And all throughout the spectrum, all in the middle of it, all in the gray area in which we don't desire. We don't desire to die as normal human beings. That is how we live our lives for the entirety of our lives, in that gray area, in which we do not desire to die. For whatever reason, we desire to stay here on this earth, the earth that we've known our entire human lives. Right? But at the opposite ends of the spectrum, on both sides, there is a strong desire to die. And I want to put a little bit of my personal story in there. All right, just to go ahead and end this video. Just yesterday, I was receiving all sort of blessings and stuff. People were just coming out of the woodwork. I had strangers coming out. I had acquaintances coming out. I had people who I consider pretty close to me coming out on the internet, telling me, all writing me huge long paragraphs about how they're glad that I didn't go ahead and end it, right? And the reason that I want to emphasize that I didn't really come close to ending it necessarily, and that's because of the words of Jesus Christ. That's because of the message of Jesus Christ, and also especially in particular the message and the words of Kayla Nicole Davis, in which I knew that I would be sincerely disappointing her if I did choose to go that route. Right? I shared the video and my true, genuine feelings on what was happening in that particular time, and then people came out of the woodwork to tell me, "We're so glad that you didn't. Thank you," and all sort of things. And there's so much, and they would tell me, "Oh man, we appreciate you. I appreciate you so much for this and that, and I watch all your videos." Some people were telling me, "Oh, I watch all your videos and stuff," and it's honestly all the responses, every last one of them, were blowing my freaking mind. I never would have dreamed to receive not one of those responses. Right? Honestly, what I was expecting, after coming home from jail, which I didn't go to because they didn't want to arrest me. Honestly, what I was expecting is people to leave comments like, "Oh man, you'll pull through, man. You make it and stuff." Just the regular, ordinary stuff that people hear. Right? The responses I got were out of this world. Unbelievable, right? And what it did is it put me on top of the world. Like it made all my wildest dreams come true that day, specifically yesterday. All right, so I'm on top of the world. My mind's rattling all over my head. All right, it's just bouncing off the walls and stuff. Like I don't I literally couldn't be more happy. All sort of stuff was happening and just falling into my lap yesterday, and I couldn't believe it. It was unbelievable. All right, so that's all happening. It's taking place, and I want to tell you about a particular moment. Went out to walk this dog. I don't know, see this, that's what the dog looks like. If you ever hear, I'm sorry if the dog ever barks in your ear and you're wearing headphones, dude. I understand it does happen. It's terrible. But that's the dog. And I was walking the dog. Like I said, I was on top of the world. I could not have wanted anything at all. I was on top of the world, and I was walking this dog, and it's just me and the dog. Nobody's saying anything, and I just couldn't believe it. Just in total ecstasy. And I'm walking this dog, and a thought comes over to my head. All right. And by the way, thoughts are very dangerous. I'm sure we're going to discuss that plenty of times before it's all said and done here. But a thought comes over my head that I feel so good. I feel so amazing right now that I wish, and I'm not exaggerating or anything like that I wish that a mob would appear from nowhere. That's what I was wishing. I was wishing that a mob would appear from nowhere with torches and pitchforks. I was wishing that they would appear from out of nowhere and demand my death. And it might seem very weird and perverse to people. I'm not trying to say it isn't. It's just literally what passed over my mind. That I feel so good that I wish a mob would come. Pitchforks, torches, and anger in their hearts. And I wish they would come with a 10-foot cross, 10, 11, 12-foot cross, carrying it with them. And I wish they had so much anger in their hearts that they went up to me and said, Gerard, look, you've done too much. You've said too much. We can't afford you. All right. We brought this cross. We're gonna set. In fact, actually, here you take it. You carry it. You carry it down the street about a mile. We're gonna set it up. And then we're gonna nail you to it. Why? Because you've said too much. We can't afford you. We don't like what you said. We have anger in our hearts. We want your death. We want it. All right. This is all passing through my mind as I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I'm wishing for this. I'm wishing it would happen. This mob comes to me and says, look, you gotta go. You said too much. We don't like the words you say. They're offensive, dude. You need to go. Once you do go, all of our dreams are going to be answered and stuff like that. The world's going to be better. All right. And what I would proceed to do, what I would have been thrilled to do, is take that cross from them and walk that mile and set it up myself and have them nail me to it so that I could die. I was wishing that would happen. All right. And it's not that I'm brave or anything like that. I'm not any braver than anybody who's watching this video right now. I'm not any better at all than anybody who will ever see this video. It had nothing to do with bravery. It's just that I felt so good that I was wishing it would happen. All right. So that's how I felt yesterday. And, with that in mind, that might sound familiar to you. That story might sound familiar to you. It's written in a book. Right? There's a man who wasn't a man, the Son of God, the one and only, who did exactly that. A lot of people, they feel all sorts of different kind of ways. I don't know how you should feel about it. That story, that particular story of what he did, but he did do it. It absolutely did happen. All sort of evidence points to that it did happen. All right. A lot of people feel all sorts of different ways. I want to end up this video by saying that when it did happen, This man who wasn't a man, he was well more than a man. When it did happen, he was in ultimate ecstasy. He felt so good that indeed he wanted to die. He wanted to be taken from this earth. And all of his tragic, retarded, mixed up, and backwards ways. He wanted to be taken from there. And he felt so good. He felt really good. Anyways, I'll holler at y'all. It is March the 24th, 2018, and I thank God for all y'all out there. And we're building something here. We're building something that I could not ever build by myself. I'm not the leader of this. You're the leader of this. You are. It's March the 24th, 2018, and I'll holler at y'all a little bit later.